Cutting up gang, man. Y'all know the customs and different traditions about our hair. This about to be crazy, man. Yeah.
If I need to cut it,
I'm about to get you together. The beliefs and rituals and superstitions of early civilizations vary from one ethnic group to another, depending on the region and social interactions with other groups. There was a general belief among many groups that hair clippings could bewitch an individual. Hence, the privilege of hair cutting was reserved for the priest, medicine man, spiritual leader of the tribe. According to the Greek philosopher and mathematician Fergus, the hair was the source of the brain's inspiration, and cutting it decreased an individual's intellectual capacity. The Irish peasantry believed that if the hair cutting were burned or buried with the dead, no evil spirits would hunt the individual. I like to know stuff like this because that's pretty interesting how deep our hair history go, you feel me? Among some Native American tribes, it was believed that the hair and the body were so linked that anyone possessing a lock of hair of another's might work his will on that individual. In almost every early culture, hairstyles indicated social status. Even today, cutting up gang, like hair today, and right now it's 2022, hair is a social status in our society. In ancient Greece, boys would cut their hair upon reaching adolescence, while their Hindi counterparts would shave their heads. Following the invasion of China by the Manchu China, men adopted the queue as a mark of dignity and manhood. Noblemen of ancient Gaul indicated their rank by wearing their hair long until Caesar, upon conquering Gaul, made them cut it as a sign of a submission. I say in ancient Gaul, they used to wear their hair long to show how much money they had or their ranking in life. You feel me? But you know, after Caesar conquered the ancient Gaul, they said cut it as a sign of submission. Like, boy, y'all lost. You feel me? Crazy. At various times in Roman history, slaves would be allowed or disallowed to wear beards depending on the dedicated of the ruler. And cutting up game, when they say slaves, they not referring to the slaves that we taught, not black, white slaves. They talking about like maids, somebody like in the English language, words are so, you know what I mean? But what this book is referring to, somebody who pretty much had a job. It wasn't a slave, but back then that's what the name was. You got to remember, in the 1500s, in the 1600s, that's when the letter J was created. We didn't even use the letter J. So this is that history, you feel me, before the letter J was even here. So some people who had jobs was called slaves, but like I say, they're not the same slaves that we was taught in our lifetime. It was just like a job, man. It was a slave, and it wasn't a such thing as a maid yet, because that's an American term. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a term back then. That's a new term. You feel me? Cutting up gang? Yeah. Coloring agents was often used to add further dimension. Even back then, we was coloring our hair. You feel me? That's not no new thing. How we coloring right now, we've been doing that. It's in the history. Coloring agents was often used to add further dimension. The ancient Britons, extremely proud of their long hair, bright and blonde hair with washes composed of tallow, lime, and the extracts of certain vegetables. Darker hair was treated with dyes extracted and possessed from plants, trees, and various soils. The Danes, Angels, and Normans dressed their hair for beautifications, adornments, and ornaments. Before battle with the Britons in the ancient Rome, the color of a woman's hair indicated her class or rank. Noble women tinted their hair red. Those of the middle class colored their hair blonde, and poor women were compelled to dye their hair black. Man, yeah. Much later, during the reign of Queen Elizabeth in England, it would become fashionable for men to dye the beard and cut it to vary variety of shapes. Queen Elizabeth came into England, that's when we start, but it wasn't even us, you feel me? But that's when we started doing the beards and coloring it, and before then we didn't do that as far as men, but the women did. Like I say, the women, if you was high class and you was a woman, you had red hair. If you was middle class, again, you had the blondest hair. Low class, you feel me? You was compelled to dye the hair black. In later centuries, region, occupations, and politics also influenced the length and style of hair, as well as wearing or not a beard. Like how I was saying, like most police officers ain't got the biggest beard. They ain't got the fluffy Santa Claus beard. You gotta be clean shaves. Another example is the military, how we was talking about yesterday. If y'all didn't catch that video, make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe, and check them videos out, man. It's true stories. This in a Barber book, you feel me? Clergymen of the Middle Ages were astonished by the tonsure, a shaved patch on the crown of the head. During the 17th century, Celtics and Roman church leaders disagreed what the exact shape of the tonsure should take. The circular tonsure, called the tonsure of St. Peter, only a slight fringe hair around the head, and was preferred in Germany, Italy, and Spain. The Picts and Scots preferred a similar design, as known as the tonsure of St. John. After much argument, the Pope eventually decreed that priests were to shave their beards and mustache and adopt the tonsure of St. Peter. Although the edicts of the church maintained some influence over the priests and the general public for several centuries, beards and longer hairstyles had returned by the 11th century. Priests curled or braided their hair and beards until Pope Gregory issued another papal decree requiring shaved faces and short hair. You feel me? It was not until 1972 that the Roman Catholic Church finally abolished the practice of tonsure. Most rulers and monarchs became trendsetters by the virtue of their position and power in society. Personal home tastes and even physical limitations could become the basics for changes in the hairstyles and fashion. For example, in the 16th century, when Francis I of France accidentally burnt his hair with a torch, his loyal subjects had their hair, beards, and mustache cut short. During the reign of Louis V in the 17th century, noblemen wore wigs because of the king, who was balding, did so. During the 19th century in France, men and women showed appreciation for the inequity of wearing various Caesar cuts, the style of the early Roman empires. And then, it's so important for us to know the history of our beards and shaving. Think about it. With the razor being such a defining tool for the barbering, the history of shaving as well as caring for the beard in general deserves a second look. Since the practice of shaving penetrates the written word, it is difficult to determine just when this form of removal began. Early stone razors or scrapers from the Upper Peninsula period indicates that early men may have used these tools for hair removal as well as for skinning of animals. By the time of the Neolithic period, early men had created settlements and begun to farm and raise animals. Artwork of this period shows examples of clean-shaven men, but it is unknown how the hair was removed. Like, how did they have that without the tools that we got today? In Egypt, however, pyramids from around 7000 BC have yielded anti-bladed razors. Shat are known to have been used by the ruling classes to shave their heads as well as their faces, and by 4000 BC, a form of tweezers was also used. It stands to reason that the nomadic nature of many early groups helped spread the practice of shaving throughout the rest of the world. Mesopotamians of the 3000 BC were shaving with obsidian blades, and by 2800 BC, Sumerians was also clean shaven. Likewise, Greek men of 1000 BC are seen in works of art visiting their local barber for shaving services. In early times, most groups considered the beard to be a sign of wisdom, strength, or manhood. In some cultures, the beard was a sacred symbol. For example, in Rome, a young man's first shave on his 22nd birthday considered a rite of passage from boyhood to manhood and was celebrated with great festivity. To this day, among Orthodox Jews, the beard is a sign of religious devotion, and to cut off one's beard is contrary to Masonic laws. Beards have been removed throughout the centuries at the command of rulers and priests. Alexander the Great, as mentioned earlier, Alexander the Great, I talked about him yesterday, my video from yesterday. Y'all make sure y'all like that. His soldiers had to shave their beards to be seized at the battle. The Archbishop of Rome and France prohibited a wearing of a beard in 1096, spurring the formation of the first known barber guide in France. Peter the Great encouraged shaving by imposing a tax on beards. During the spread of Christianity, so that was around the 1500s and 1600s, as well as we all know, like how I was talking earlier, the letter J. That's when the letter J was created. So before that, we never used the letter J. But long hair became considered sinful, and clergy were directed to shave their beards. Although the shaving of the beard was still forbidden among Orthodox Jews, the use of scissors to trim or shape excess growth was permitted. Muslims took great care in trimming their facial hair after prayer, and the removed hair was preserved so that it could be buried with its owner. Cutting up gang. If y'all like videos like this, make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. Man, look, and I'm gonna see y'all again tomorrow. Yeah.